All right. Back again. It's Wednesday night. We're going to run it down tonight with the AMA and all the fun stuff that's going on out there in the world. If you've been living under a rock, you may or may not have heard. President Trump was just on the live stream talking about all the fun tax goodies that we're going to be getting next year. You got a wartime dividend being paid to people for $1,776, which is cool. And then he also stated that 2026 will be the largest tax return year that we've ever seen. So I'm hopeful for that. I believe it. I think that a lot of people are going to be getting money back next year. But in order to get money back, you have to pay money in. So, that's a lot of W-2 people out there that are working hard and putting in the hours and getting paid that W-2, and Uncle Sam's raking it off the top. They're going to give some of it back to you, which is awesome. So other cool things in the news today, and then we'll get into the fun stuff. Coinbase is the first ever platform where you can trade anything for anything. So they're launching stocks. You'll be able to trade commodities, other derivatives. The only thing that I'm not sure, and we know that Jim and I got the approval for this, is it's the one where you bet. It's like Polymarket. I can't think of the term off the top of my head. I don't have enough caffeine. It's late. Anyway, you would be able to trade your stocks for crypto, for commodities, for treasuries, whatever you want, right there on their platform in one unified location. You've had some other people try to do this. You got Robinhood and you got Webull and some other stock trading platforms that have crypto, but I don't believe they have commodities and all the other stuff that they announced they're going to be rolling out over there at Coinbase. So pretty cool to see that there's actually going to be a place where you can just one-stop shop, trade anything for anything. That's a big, big deal. You guys may have watched my recent interview with Tillman. He is the CEO of Arch Public. We got a cool new product that we've rolled out with them for people that have IRAs with us, so individual retirement accounts. If you're working with Digital Wealth Partners and you have an IRA with us, we can you can subscribe to the algorithmic trading opportunity that we have, and it aggregates more XRP and pays you some cash. And you don't have to police it or do anything. It is a proprietary algorithmic trading strategy with multiple layers that we've put in place for people to be able to execute over there. And if you want to, compound your XRP and grow a cash position inside your IRA, we can now do that because trades inside of an IRA are not taxable. They're either tax deferred or tax free, depending on the type of IRA it is. So excited to be rolling that out. That is the first of many announcements that we're going to be bringing to you guys in the near future. A lot of products that we've been working on over the past 6 months. I don't know if it had to do with the retrogrades or just where the market was or what was going on. Oh, my wonderful wife with the tea.
It's mood uplifting.
Oh, mood uplifting tea. I need that today. I really do. I've lost my train of thought. Oh, the other cool products that we're going to be rolling out for you guys. So we have a lot of stuff coming here in January. There's going to be some major announcements that we're able to put forth, I think, right after the holidays. Some of our partners want to make sure that, one, things are outlined correctly and presented well. And then two, that, people are kind of past the holidays and paying attention. The world is about to move into sleep for the next 2 weeks. A lot of things, and I don't think it'll be sleepy. I think it's going to be very exciting here at the end of the year. You guys already know that. But I want to touch on, Friday. There was actually a vote in the House tonight where they would have denied powers for Trump to continue to escalate things with Venezuela without congressional approval. And that was denied by 2 votes. It just barely kept from passing there. So our commander in chief still can, continue to push the envelope there with Venezuela, which I think needs to happen in order for oil and all the things that I've been talking about to take place. So if that had been passed, it would have been much less likely that there would be geopolitical conflict that would cause oil to spike. But, just by 2 votes, the possibility continues to persist here at the end of the year. Weird how things work out. So excited about that. Well, excited but not excited, right? Like, I don't want any collateral damage. I don't want bad things to happen, but I do believe that, we are going to see oil spike imminently, very, very near future, which will then, exacerbate the reverse carry trade and all the things we've been talking about and all the fun stuff that we get to see on the other side of that. So the other reason I want to point to Friday is, I gave you guys the 3 things on my bingo card on Monday. We got Epstein documents, we got BlackRock ETP or exchange traded product for XRP of some kind, and then a spike in oil. Those are the 3 pieces that are missing on my bingo card for 2025 for a $100 to $1,000 XRP price. Because all of those are the catalysts that cascade events from there that cause it to be pushed to where it needs to be, to save the back end of the stock market and settle markets and do all the stuff that we want it to do. So with Epstein's documents, we know we don't know that we're going to get them Friday. They've said lots of times, right? They have until Friday to release them. They will probably wait till the last minute. In the past, when there has been not so good information put out, I'll point to one of those times, and I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot. You'll get the gist of it. 9/10 in 2001, it was found out that the Pentagon had lost $3 trillion or misplaced $3 trillion. And then the next day, some things happened that took people's attention away from, what had happened over there at the Pentagon. I don't know that we will see anything like that this Friday, but it sure would be interesting if there was some other chaos or other things that came along to take people's attention away from the Epstein documents that will be, supposedly released. We'll see if they are or not. But they, based on everything that's going on here, it looks like they will be. So that's on my bingo card. And people are like, why does that matter? Fair question. I mean, none of these things seem like they're directly correlated with crypto except the BlackRock ETP, right? Like, that's obviously a huge demand on XRP when that gets rolled out. And again, they filed their A8 for the BlackRock ETF, Trust ETF. Pretty ambiguous. It could be anything. I think people are going to find out, BlackRock and Ripple and XRP are much more intimately involved than maybe you realize. When we see what's going to be in that ETF when they file their S1. So all these things here culminating at the end of the year. But with, the Epstein deal, I don't know. I just have a sneaky suspicion that there's going to be some correlation to Bitcoin or Tether when that comes out. I could be way off base. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm completely wrong on that. But I do think if that were to be the case, it would have implications that would not be so great for that asset. You would see a rotation out of Bitcoin, which we haven't seen this cycle. You normally get a rotation out of Bitcoin into the altcoins, and because the majority of the liquidity put into Bitcoin through this cycle has been through the ETFs, you're going to need a rotation out of Bitcoin's ETFs into the other ETFs that are listed. XRP, having the second most ETFs listed currently. So we'll have to see what ends up shaking out there. But I do think, Friday could be very interesting if they do release those documents. I anticipate chaos and volatility and distractions to take people's attention to something else. And with Japan raising interest rates Thursday night, Friday, their time, but Thursday night here in the US, about 24 hours from now, is when they will be raising supposedly 75 basis points, which is exactly what I talked about Monday, causing a huge unwind in markets. You will see it first in the Nikkei or the Nikkei, and then we will see it likely in our markets the next day. So there's a full trading day on Friday where we could have some not so fun things. And again, like I talked about Monday, I think they could like kick it to the weekend. Maybe they have limit down. Maybe they stop trading in markets. Maybe there's a liquidity crisis. There's some things that could occur that could push it, into the weekend and get it. But that doesn't solve crypto, right? If the crypto markets were to continue to crash over the weekend and they were to open back up Monday on the stock market, the ETFs would have huge unrealized losses. Again, my whole point with this is that XRP needs to be pushed to a price where it can settle the back end of the stock market to be able to de-risk all these positions for people that are holding the Bitcoin ETFs if there is a large fall. Otherwise, they're going to be out a lot of money, and they're not going to have any place to pull that money from in order to be able to recover those losses or cover the difference. Hopefully you're positioned. I have seen, I haven't seen, I've heard some rumblings, and I'm not advised, I should probably give my disclaimer. Nothing here is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always speak with a financial advisor, a CPA, or attorney before making any tax, financial, or legal decisions. If you need those professionals and their expertise in digital assets, you can reach out to Digital Ascension Group at digitalfamilyoffice.io or Digital Wealth Partners if you're looking specifically for financial advice on your crypto. And also, I have to say, my opinions are not the opinions of the firm. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners. So now that we have the disclaimer out of the way, I've started to see some people rotate or hear about some people rotating. I don't know if this is going on or not. I'm not recommending anything. Rotating their gains out of silver and gold into XRP. Again, not telling you what to do or advocating for that. I've just talked to some people that they were thinking about that. And silver continues to pump. The people that have been buying silver for the last 20 years, crushing it. Gold, crushing it. When the reverse carry trade unwinds, I don't believe that we're going to continue this rally in metals. I know that Alex Jones and other people believe that's the case. I'm going to be the only one out here telling you that it's going to go the other way, and I'm okay with that. I think you could see, I do think silver could go to 100. That's kind of the top end of silver for me, especially if we do see a big drop in gold. So historically, gold to silver ratio has been 40-1. And with gold where it's at, I don't know that gold's going to go a whole lot higher, especially when the carry trade unwinds. I think there's a lot of paper gold that will pull the price down somewhere back to around 2,000 or 2,100. At that point, the gold to silver ratio would actually be like, 20-1 or even higher than that. And that normally tends to be the top of the cycle. I like to see, everybody else looks at assets priced in dollars. I like to look at assets priced in other assets. So gold in particular, I'll look at gold versus the S&P or gold versus real estate. Same thing with silver. You can do all of that. I'd recommend, not necessarily using that as the end all be all, but at least looking at those types of charts instead of just focusing on dollars, because dollars are obviously going to continue to be printed. I do think that they'll shore up the currency and back things on the other side of this transition. But until then, they're going to continue to print as much as they can to be able to offset the deflationary collapse that they do believe is coming. And I would agree with them. So you guys have listened to me ramble long enough this evening. Hopefully y'all are having a good time. And thanks again for taking time out to hang out with me on a Wednesday. We'll go ahead and jump into the chat here. Oh yeah, I got to do the other super chats that I missed last week. My wife is wonderful at reminding me. So Captain Beyond, thank you for the $10 super chat, but I got to get to these over here. So we got Marin, it's a legend question. Wouldn't you have to sell some XRP to pay off or buy your house? If you put all your XRP in your LLC, you can't use those assets to do that, as it would be commingling assets and piercing your corporate veil. This is a good thing you point this out. So you could pay yourself a dividend out of the company for the profits. That would be in your operating agreement on what cadence and the amounts that you'd be capable of doing that. In addition to that, you should have provision in your operating agreement that allows you to borrow money out of the company, if you're in whatever position to be able to do that. So if you're the managing member, you should have the capability to be able to borrow money from the company. So you will owe it back, but it is a loan, so it's not income, okay? And obviously there needs to be interest payments and whatever else. So you could loan yourself the money to buy the house out of your LLC in full, and then, or the down payment, whatever it is. And then it wouldn't be income. You would not be commingling assets. You would need to draft the debt note that is owed back to the company. Or again, you could pay yourself a dividend on whatever cadence for profits out of the corporation, which would also not be, commingling assets or cash. And I'm sure there's other ways. You want to pay your house off. If you're going to buy another property, you're going to buy a rental property, you'd set up a new LLC, and then you would buy that property through the new LLC that would be owned by the previous LLC. There's lots of ways to structure that. And that would be the way that I would look at that if you did want to pull money out of the company to pay your house off. It depends on what your interest rate is. I've talked about this before. There is a quality of life component to knowing that your structure or your home where you live is paid for. There's peace of mind in that. And it's hard to put a quantifiable value on that. But logically, if your interest rate's below 4 or 5 and it's a 30-year fixed mortgage, I'm just going to say it, it's a horrible financial decision to use that capital to pay off your home. Because if you do refinance it at this point, you're going to have a much higher cost to do that, to pull money back out. So that capital will basically be illiquid. And if you need to access it again for whatever reason, it's going to cost you a lot more than what it is to just leave the debt as it sits today and service it over time. But again, there's that quality of life component and that peace of mind. Sometimes that's more valuable for people. And I get that. I really do. All right. A couple more super chats here, and then we'll jump into the ones tonight. This one says, greetings, Jake, from Chile. Very cool. They say, if the reverse carry trade is going to cause a 50% crash across the board, does it make sense to hold XRP before that happens? And how? And do you have any NDAs that would surprise us if they were revealed? Winky face. I don't think I have any NDAs that would surprise people. Well, there might be one. Yeah, there's probably one that would surprise people. But most of them, I think you could probably figure it out. Now, holding XRP before the crash. I'm not going to try to catch that falling knife. I know a lot of people want to entertain that. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they, thought about holding 10% cash on the sideline, putting in a limit order, and trying to catch that on the way down. I do think it'll go down. I don't know that this is the bottom for XRP. I do think that there is going to be a big leg down when all this happens, but I think it's going to be a meteoric rise almost immediately after that. So we'll have to see whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know. But I'm not going to play that game. I would rather just be in and know it and not have to worry about it. So up to you. Again, can't give you financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Don't work at Digital Wealth Partners. I'm just an owner. So, all right. And then we got one more. Says, can you please elaborate on why you are convinced that the bingo you're talking about will happen in the next 15 days instead of Q1 2026 after crypto makes the blow off top and one. Not sure what the end of that is. Really kind of people have just kind of pinned that on me, and I'm just going to go with it. All of this absolutely could. I don't have control over macroeconomic events. However, I am extremely confident that within the next 14 days here, we see all this play out. Again, that's why they're on my bingo card for 2025. You have everything present for oil to spike. You have everything present for the Epstein documents to be released. You have everything in place for BlackRock to roll their ETF. So I don't know why that wouldn't happen before the end of the year. If you want to put your tinfoil hat on, there's a lot of things that lead me to believe that around 5 years after the lawsuit is when things will play out. There's been hints and tips and tricks, from the people that would know that have pointed to that. So there may have been some other conversations I've had. But outside of that, those would be the reasons that I'm as confident as I am that 2025 is going to end with a bang. So, and again, maybe it rolls into next year. I am 99.9999999% that it's this year. But there's a sliver of a chance that somehow it gets pushed into Q1. And I'm sure people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're pivoting." I'm not pivoting. I'm still very confident it's going to happen this year. I just stated that. So anybody else that's out there that says, "Oh, you're hedging," I'm not hedging this year. All right. So we'll go ahead and roll into the next one here. We've got Zachary Soares says, legend. WTI cruise rose almost 3% today. What's the magic number? We need a spike. We need a 10 to 20% spike in 24 hours. And that'll be enough. That'll give Japan the excuse that they need. That's going to be a problem for them. And again, I think things are about to get crazy leading up to Friday. We got 2 more days this week. Should be a fun time. And I think maybe by next Monday, right before Christmas, it'll actually be 5 years since the lawsuit was filed against Ripple on Monday next week, the 21st. Is Monday the 21st? Today's Wednesday the 17th. So 18th Thursday, 19th Friday. Oh, sorry, 22nd. So 20th is Saturday, 21st is Sunday, 22nd is Monday. I think by next Monday we could see some cool stuff happen. I think this is the Christmas that the Grinch gives back. So I do think oil will spike maybe in the next 2 days because Japan is going to raise rates on Friday, and that's really our Thursday night. So that gives us really 24 hours here before they're going to be raising rates, and they're going to need a scapegoat. They're going to need something. Maybe not. Maybe they raise rates and then they do oil, and then they have to raise again because it's normally an emergency meeting that they have to call. That tends to be the black swan type stuff. It's normally not the regular cadence and what people are projecting, right? Because a lot of people pointed out, like, markets are six months forward. Like, that's what they price in, and they've been talking about 75 basis points. So, but they also told everybody what was going to happen last time and nobody believed them. And then they raised the interest rates. And then we saw the reverse carry trade start to unwind at scale before. And it wasn't like they didn't tell people it was coming. So I think that's going to be the case again. I think people are going to try to milk it to the last second and then rush through back to the door. And that's why Uncle Warren's parked over there with $300 billion worth of yen. So he can loan those people yen. They can repay their loan and then they owe him the interest on that loan. That's what I think he's doing. He's saying he's hedging currency risk. I see the real game that he's playing. He is a lender of last resort, is what Uncle Warren does. Peter says, can you please explain the top highlights of what the benefits of working with digital wealth partners? Explain it to me like I'm 5. If you have to, I don't need the whole story just to break down things. So kind of high level, right? One, institutional grade custody. My definition of institutional grade custody, there's a lot of definitions out there. My definition, segregated, bankruptcy remote, insured accounts by a regulated financial institution. Yeah, you need all those things. And it needs to be FIPS compliant, which use HSMs and not MPC technology, because that's the only way you're going to get like an actual trust charter here in the US. Like there's a lot of regulatory pieces around that. That's kind of like a caveat, but mainly those 4 things. And so we do that. We partner with Anchorage to provide that for our clients. And outside of that, you get an advisor that'll actually tell you what to do with your crypto. They provide you other products and services alongside, just holding it in institutional custody. Like that's cool, but what else can you do, right? So lines of credit against your digital assets. We do Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, Matic, Chainlink, XRP, XLM, HBAR. We finally have HBAR, Quant, Avalanche, and then pretty much any other EVM-based token. Trump token. If you got a bunch of Trump token, we'd love to talk to you. So we hold all those, and then we build bespoke institutional products on top of that for our clients. So right now we have a hedge fund that has about $400 million worth of XRP in it. We have 2 strategies that I can talk about publicly on here that you can ask them about. One's an income strategy, and one is a growth strategy. Up to this point, those 2 funds that I can talk about have done 5% and 3% on the year. 5% on the income, 3% on the other. They have other products over there, and I think some people have shared some returns for other products that I can't talk about here because of regulations. So if they're sharing those, they're doing it illegally, and the SEC might come knock on their door. We're not sharing them because we can't publicly solicit on some of the stuff that we do. I can only talk about the income and growth fund that are, 506C, Reg D, 3C1, 100 investor limit deals. So, I think we have a couple spots in those left open. If you want to go talk to our advisors about them at Digital Wealth Partners. And then in addition to that, we are rolling out more products. We just rolled out the algorithmic trading on your IRA. We can do IRAs. You do have to have a LLC or a trust to hold assets with us at Anchorage. They work with enterprises. They don't work with retail. So that's why we help people structure those. And again, our minimum over there is 50,000 XRP, which is over $100,000 in your crypto portfolio, which is where, I tell people $50,000 to $80,000. And I just want to make that clear. I'm anticipating that there's a significant rise in a very short period of time on XRP in particular. So if you're holding 50,000 XRP, and when it goes to $100 or $1,000, let's say it goes straight to $1,000. I don't know if we're going to get that big a jump, but let's entertain it. Okay. You got 50,000 XRP. It goes to $1,000 a piece. You now have $50 million. The gift tax threshold in the US is $30 million. So if you want to move that out of your taxable estate and move it into a trust, gift it, you're going to have to compress that value. And that's where the LLC becomes valuable. You can gift small portions of equity to other people you want to take care of, family members or friends. And then you can get a 409A valuation done on that LLC that holds $50 million worth of XRP. But because there's minority owners on the cap table, a person giving that valuation would discount the value of the LLC. Even though the asset value is 50 million, they would discount it somewhere between 35 and 25%. So you're going to compress that value down to the, call it 30 million, that you can then gift the full thing out of your taxable estate if you wanted to, all of that equity into the trust that you set up. If you're scrambling last minute to set up the LLC and then do all the operational stuff that's required for that, it doesn't take a long time, but there's some work there, and the price continues to move. You could be in a spot where now you have, which is champagne problems, $100 million, and it's in your taxable estate. So now you're really only left with philanthropic options, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of our clients do have significant interest in doing philanthropic things, helping people, their community, giving back, structuring foundations or donor advised funds, charitable remainder trusts. We can do those in kind. There's some other people out there that would want you to sell your crypto and then, do stuff inside of a charitable remainder trust. We can keep it in kind in the charitable remainder trust. We've worked with our attorneys to be able to do that. I think our main difference between the way we look at the wealth management for crypto versus anybody else is we want to help you keep it. We want to help you grow it. We want the value of the asset to continue to compound and grow over time. And you not to have a bunch of tax implications from selling it, or, potential like lost opportunity. Imagine all the people that sold their Bitcoin. They bought it at $1 and sold it at 100. Awesome. But like, what else did they miss out on? I think there's going to be a lot of people on XRP that don't necessarily regret taking profit. Like, you never go broke taking profit, but you might look back and be like, dang, that could have been worth a lot of money if I had just, sat it over there and, lived off my 4% for a little bit longer, or borrowed against it instead of selling it. So I think that's the main differentiator between us and, other people. Other people want you to sell your crypto. And I get that, like, they make fees on the trading. Whereas we're paid on AUM fees. So if your assets appreciate, we make more money with you. If your assets go down in value, we make less money with you. I like to have aligned interest with people. The other thing I would say why Digital Wealth Partners is better than just going direct, because there's going to be a lot of people that have a ton of money post price appreciation. You'll be able to go set up an institutional account if you want to. If you've got 20, 50, $100 million, you could go to an Anchorage, you could go to a Gemini, you could go to Coinbase. You've got to manage it all. You're not going to have access to the products that we provide. And the cost for the custody there is going to be much higher than what we would charge you. So we get billed on the total amount of AUM that we have under management. And so we're able to pass those discounts to our clients on the costs. So if you got 20, 50 million and you're going to go park it in Anchorage, they're going to charge you 50 basis points. We're going to be 40. And as it continues to escalate, our costs will come down, and we will also pass those costs on reductions on the clients. And then separate of that, 20 or 50 or $100 million is a lot of money. It is. It's a lot of money. And when you go to a bank, people are going to want to work with you. But when you are negotiating on your own behalf with financial institutions or hedge funds or whoever, they're dealing with billions of dollars. So if you're part of a larger group that has hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars under management, we can go negotiate on your behalf and get you a way better deal for interest rates, for returns, for all this stuff that you wouldn't be able to get on your own. but you're still getting all the benefits of being on your own because you have a segregated bankruptcy remote insured account with advisory and all of the opportunities that we provide. So I try to make it, I always like to have your cake and eat it too, right? It's not always that way. We do our best to make sure that that is the case, but I always look for creative solutions where other people have to win for us to win. And we'll continue. That's part of our ethos. It's one of our core principles to be selfishly selfish. So hopefully, that resonates with you. I know that was probably a much longer, drawn out explanation than you wanted there for what differentiates Digital Wealth Partners, but hopefully that provides you better context. We got Go Big. Yes. There's something on the camera on the phone.
It's right with your beard, so I didn't know that.
What?
A lot of people on TikTok are crying about it.
What?
And it looked like crumbs in your beard, but I know it's
I'm sure it probably is crumbs in my beard.
It's something on the phone, on the camera or something. I don't know.
I'm a regular dude.
Like, we have crumbs because we
like I know people, I don't know. People are very nice and they pay me a bunch of compliments, but I'm just a regular dude like everybody else, and I get crumbs in my beard. Okay? It's just part of life, right? Let get this gentleman. Thank you for the super chat. It says, "Hey, legend, from Singapore." Oh, dude, awesome. Carbon One member, thank you for all that you do for the community. Are you still confident in 3-digit XRP by the end of the year? When is Digital Wealth Partners coming to Singapore? 2026, my friend. We will see you in 2026 there in Singapore. We'll likely be at Token 2049, both in Dubai and in Singapore. And we do look to open offices there in Singapore in 2026. So really excited about that. Looking forward to working with you there. I am still very confident, again, like I mentioned just a little bit before, that 99.999999999% that we see 3 digits this year in 2025. We got Trish. She says, Jake, I found it interesting. Armada means a fleet of Navy ships ready for battle. Armada, Evernorth. Trump took a fleet of oil ships from Venezuela. Yes, he did. And again, I'm waiting on oil. We've got M. Chester. They say, legend. What's up, man? Or should we call you Mr. Balls of Steel? Beyond Broke Mastermind here. What do you make of President Trump's message this evening leading into the end of the year? Merry Christmas to you and yours. God bless. Appreciate you, man. I think people... We've seen gas come down. We've seen some other stuff happen, but I think he needs to reassure people because gas is about to go up again with what's about to happen with oil. That people are going to be okay. I think tonight was kind of preemptive. I think he knows what's about to play out over the next couple weeks here, which is going to be great for a lot of people, but it's also going to be rough for others in that period of time. It'll be volatile. Anytime there's uncertainty or volatility in markets, people need reassurance. And so I think him coming on tonight and just reassuring people that they're going to get, benefits next year and everything's on track for his term. I think it's good. I think it reassures the American people, and he's just looking to get ahead of some of the volatility that's going to play out in the next couple days here. David says, I appreciate all that you do. He says the Google says that R3 is using XDC and not XRP. Can you shed some light on this, please? Merry Christmas to you and yours. Appreciate you in the super chat, my man. So, you guys have seen me with the R3 mug. We did work with them for a period of time. I do have NDAs that I can't talk about what we worked with them on, but I can talk about some of the conversations that we had leading up to that. And in one of those conversations, we asked them what we should use to settle between the infrastructures that we were going to build. And we said, well, is it XDC or XRP? And they said, well, it's got to be something that has legal clarity. We're not going to use anything that is ambiguous or we're unsure of domestically here in the US. And I said, and this was after, actually, I think it was before we had got clarity in the lawsuit. No, it was after. It was in 23. So anyway, I said, well, XRP, and I said, seems like a good choice out of the two that you mentioned. So whatever you want to take from that, I mean, I got to see their visceral response, which is a bit different than most people. Seemed pretty confident at the time. They were obviously allocated 1.04 billion XRP after the lawsuit with Ripple. I'd expect that they probably sold some of that off to be able to fund their business over the past 5 years, when everything's kind of been dark here in the US and it was difficult to get traction with institutions and banks and get them to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to build infrastructure. Corda is pretty much the oracle for permissioned ecosystems, for blockchain infrastructure for institutions and enterprises. Ripple has similar products. They are kind of competitors, but Corda doesn't have a native settlement token. It just sources liquidity through whatever is going to be the best way, similar to a DEX, like the XRPL. So it's interoperable with the XRPL, and it can absolutely route through XRP to settle between permissioned environments. And they built Project Ion with the DTCC. When we were at Swell, Monica Long interviewed the president of NASDAQ, and she talked about that's the first application for distributed ledger technology. So again, I probably need to write that one down on my bingo board. That one was on there. That would be the first thing that they would use it for, which is exactly what I played out in my domino theory. So anyway, all that lines up for me to believe, you've got them touting Solana, that they're going to, launch Corda on Solana in 2026. That's fine, but Solana doesn't have regulatory clarity. And for peer-to-peer payments, sure. Merchant services, sure. Visa, sure. Not back-end settlement of market infrastructure or derivatives. That's been the goal for XRP the whole time. You could trial it, for international settlement. You could trial it for FX markets, and cross-border payments. But I think the game plan the whole time has been market infrastructure, back-end settlement of derivatives. And now that Ripple's made the acquisition, Tillman talked about this on the podcast yesterday, if you watched that. Ripple is a juggernaut with the acquisitions that they've made. They are going to force all the other players in the market to start using XRP in order to just be able to compete with the cost and the efficiencies that they're going to create in markets. And if they don't, they'll swallow them. So they've backed everybody into a corner with these acquisitions. They've got the federal bank charter at this point. We had the FDIC come out today and say that non-insured banks could offer crypto products. It's full green light go for this stuff here with 2 weeks left in the year. So hold on to your biscuits. I think it's going to be a good one. We got Seymour. He says, the Devoner of Dallas, Claver. I'll take that one. That's pretty good. I'm not the Oracle of Omaha. There's a couple of people out there say the Oracle of Dallas. Thank you for the kind words. He says, thank you for being the best in class and an innovator in the space in crypto. DWP is playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. We're not perfect. We've been doing our best to scale and meet demand and provide clients with the level of service that we strive to provide. Sometimes we miss the mark on that. We get good feedback from our clients. We improve. Doing the best we can with what we got, and we'll continue to get better. Like, that's the cool part for me is, like, I know years from now we're going to have laid the groundwork. We have a ton of proprietary IP at this point that nobody else has in order to be able to meet client demand because we built it. I have an internal tech team. There's a ton of information and stuff that we need to protect and structure and do the right way. And I thank God every day for the wonderful people He's blessed me to be able to work with on our team, our employees. I run hard and they run just as hard as I do, which is incredible to watch. It blows me away. Because most people, you know, like they go to their job, they clock out, they forget about it at 5 o'clock. Our employees are nonstop, 24/7. I wouldn't say 365. Max Savory and I are pretty hardcore. Like we don't really take much holidays or do anything, and even if we do, we're working the whole time. You know, you give up a season for the rest of your life. I'm okay with that. But even our employee, like I see emails coming across at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight. Our employees are working around the clock to make sure that our clients stay happy and meet demand. So again, super blessed for that. And none of that's possible without you guys. If we didn't have really cool people that wanted to do cool stuff with us and use the products and services that we're creating, none of it exists. None of it matters. So shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for wanting to, you know, want to work with us and trust us and, you know, help us build this for the XRP family. And that's really kind of how I feel about it. Like, I didn't do this for me. Like I could have, I made a bunch of money already. I could have done all this and just left it. But this is my contribution to the community. I want people to have access to these institutional products and institutional custody, legacy planning. I want people to make sure that they're able to protect and grow their assets over generations. You know, the banks weren't going to do it. And if one of us didn't do it, then it wasn't going to happen in the time that everybody needed it. So I feel really blessed and humbled to have been able to build what we have in anticipation of this and make sure that we do have something in place where people can be taken care of, you know, and get the value in their investment over the long term. We've got AmServe. They say, does the amount of XRP held by the ETFs reduce the circulating amount? Yes. How much XRP is held by institutions versus individuals? I think Francis Bovine just updated the rich list. So if you guys want to go check that out, it is rich-list.info. Oh, it is new. Okay, cool. Yeah, he just updated the UI. It actually it's really clean. I like this. So shout out to him. He's somebody that runs a validator, and he's nice enough to put this website up so people can look at analytics, and it's easy to like figure this stuff out. You're still going to have a difficult time discerning who's retail, who's institutional. In my mind, when I look at the chart, you know, if you go to the statistics page at rich-list.info, anything over a million XRP, there are some individuals in there. I mean, I know a lot of them. They are family offices or other high net worth individuals that do own millions of XRP, but they're few and far between. I know 50 people or less that have multiple millions of XRP. But I do know that many. So, you know, out of the, call it 2,000 wallets that are over a million, yeah, it's roughly about 2,000 that are over a million. At least 50 of those are individuals, and I think I probably know a disproportionate amount of them in comparison to other people. But I'm going to say, if I had to guess, I know a tenth of them. So I'm going to say in those top 2,000 wallets, there are 500 high net worth individuals, family offices, people that are not enterprises that own that amount of XRP. And then the rest of that is going to be institutional. So about 1,500 wallets above a million, I think, are institutions holding XRP. So what does that leave for retail? I'd have to do the math on it. If you gave me some time, I could sit here and do it for you. But, you know, retail is going to be somewhere around 2 million wallets total that have enough in it to make it, you know, reasonable. There's 2.5 million wallets that have less than 500 XRP. There's 3.5 million wallets with less than that have 0 to 20. I think that they'll eventually burn those 3.5 million wallets. I think that they'll vote to do that because obviously those are inactive and people set those wallets up a long time ago and they lost the keys to them or whatever else. They move their assets out of them. They don't use them anymore for whatever reason. I think they'll probably, and that would cut the wallets in half. We have 7.4, almost 4 million wallets. If you cut out 3.5 million of them that hold, 20 or less, which is what used to be the, amount to open a wallet used to be 20 XRP before they lowered it to 2 now. So there's really only 3.8 million wallets that have more than 500 XRP in them. And we talked about, 500 people-ish are in the institutional area above 1 million. And then everybody else sits between there and 1,000 XRP. And obviously there's some exchange accounts in the large amounts too that are also the, omnibus account at an exchange. And you can actually look that up if you want to go to xrpscan.com. You can type in at the top in the search bar the name of an exchange, and it'll pull up the wallets associated with that exchange. So if you look at those, I'm sure that there's probably another, you got OKX, you got Binance, you got Circle, not Circle, sorry. Well, Circle probably has some XRP too. I shouldn't say that though. Coinbase, Caleb and Brown, Uphold. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of exchanges. Mexi, Bybit, Bitstamp. A ton of exchanges. So, and each one of those have somewhere between 5 and 12 wallets most of the time. One or two of those wallets is retail facing. The rest of those wallets most of the time are their own internal XRP on their treasury. So maybe there's another 100 wallets associated with exchanges in the top 2,000 or above 1 million XRP in wallets. I don't know if this is answering your question or not. Hopefully it's good information for you guys when you're just looking at this list here and trying to discern what's going on. So yeah, ETFs absolutely remove it from the circulating supply. Those are also going to be in the large, group of wallets there. And those, held at Anchorage. A lot of them are Coinbase. And then I think I kind of rattled it off. I think you understand about how many wallets and how much XRP is held by institutions if you're looking at the chart over here at rich-list.info, and then also what individuals hold, or retail, if you want to call it that. Because I don't think they're going to be retail very long. I think a lot of them are going to become their own institutions in the near future. We got Zach Yeager. He says, what is the relationship between Ripple's stablecoin and XRP in the grand scheme of Ripple's main mission? Why is there never an instance where either becomes unnecessary? So different tools for different reasons. XRP is riskless. There's no counterparty risk with XRP. There is counterparty risk with RLUSD, but you also might be okay with that, right? Because it is audited. It's held by BNY Mellon. They're over $1 billion issued on chain at this point. They're a top 5 stablecoin. They're partnered with G Treasury and Rail because of those acquisitions that Ripple's made. So they have distribution for it. It does have interoperability with VanEck Money Market to be able to swap out, not in. They're working on in. You have to invest in the money market with USDC, and then you can make the yield on it, and then you get paid out in RLUSD. You can't invest in RLU. Anyway, interesting quandary that they have going on over there. But there's some actual use cases for RLUSD. And people would want to, like average retail people may want to hold RLUSD because they do trust that counterparty to be transparent and open and give them the assurances that they're looking for with, backing it with the treasuries 1-to-1. Banks don't want that. banks would rather issue their own stablecoin for their own purposes inside their own infrastructure to settle across all their locations and their own company. But they need that to be interoperable with other people. And so that's where XRP would sit in the middle as a bridge asset for settlement between those two counterparties, where they trust that network and the asset to deliver that value without having to hold the currency of the counterparty. So Nostro Vostro accounts, like you guys have, heard me talk about that plenty of times. $27 trillion locked up globally. All of that gets freed up if when XRP gets adopted for that application, or XLM or HBAR. Like there's a couple other things that could be cross-border payments and SWIFT, right? But if they do decide to partner with R3, the only thing that they can use currently is XRP, and that'll be the other piece with the Clarity Act getting pushed into 26, which is what I've said the whole time. And again, like government shutdown, there's a lot of reasons that ended up transpiring the way that it did. I think it was planned, just me, based on my conversations, but we'll put that aside. XRP, just play along with me for a second, okay? We see all of the stuff I've been talking about play out at the end of this year. XRP moves to 3 or 4 digits. It's implemented on the back end of the stock market. They implement it for FX. They implement it for commodities, cross-border payment, and other applications. And it continues to aggregate value because it's now backed by all of those transactions, right? And it becomes a tier 1 asset designated by the BIS at 4 digits. I think that's about the time they'll do it. I think when it gets over $1,000 a piece, they'll designate it a tier 1 asset that the banks can hold and use for collateral on derivatives, which again is the holy grail for it because it locks more of it up and drives demand up and also the price. Until the Clarity Act's passed, it's going to have no competition. So there's going to be a moat for up to 3 months, maybe. I got the letter that I read you guys on Monday. It's unlikely that they're even going to pass the Clarity Act in January, unless they can get it done the week of the 12th, which is possible, and come together by bipartisan approval. It's probably going to get pushed to the 26th. And then on the 30th, they have the government budgets up again. So they're probably not going to get anything but that done that week. And that really pushes it out to February or March before they're actually going to be able to get the Clarity Act passed. And until that's passed, XRP sits alone as the highest transaction per second asset and the cheapest to be able to be used in these applications with full clarity here in the US from, as not a security from the lawsuit. And then also the listing on Bitnomial as a commodity alongside Bitcoin and ETH. Bitcoin and ETH, great, but they're not scalable. They can't meet that demand for those applications. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'm extremely confident that we are going to see that exact scenario play out, and XRP will be cemented as a tier 1 global asset for back-end infrastructure and a much, much higher price. Chris says, can you explain what XRP setting the can't read tonight. Can you explain what XRP settling the back end of the stock market means? I've watched and learned a lot, but can you break it down some more? Sure. So the easiest example I can give you of this is, I'm sure you guys remember AMC and GameStop when they halted trading. Everybody was pissed off. They had to take their stocks back. Everybody complained about Robinhood, okay? It wasn't any of the brokers' fault. It wasn't Robinhood's fault. It wasn't Weeble's fault. It wasn't E-Trade's fault. All of them had to take stock back. There is no accounting mechanism across all of the clearinghouses and the brokers. There's 6 clearinghouses and then a bunch of brokers. And the brokers will settle up next day, T+1, with the clearinghouses when they sell a stock. So you buy it, they get the money. The broker gets the money. They give you the stock. The liability for that transaction sits with the clearinghouse until that money's settled. if it settles instantly, there's no liability or risk for them. They could atomically swap a tokenized stock for, you know, a stable coin or a tokenized deposit, which is how it will work by the end of 2026. Until the stock market's tokenized, they can't atomically swap, but they could still settle real time on the backside using the XRPL. So, and Corda, Project Ion, like it's built. So there's no accounting mechanism across all of it. The reason that they had to pull back the GameStop and the AMC stock was they oversold it. It was 139% of AMC sold. They had to pull it back from people because they shouldn't have ever even been able to buy it in the first place. And the clearinghouses shut off trading. They didn't even know that they had oversold the stock. They just shut off trading because they had fronted so much money on all these trades. They were like, we know we're over our skis here. Shut it down. We're halting trading. You won't have to halt trading if you have instant settlement. The risk in lending that money out and waiting for it to come back next day is gone. So markets can move to 23.5 or 24.5. I think they're going to move to 23.5 first, just so that there is an hour like where they need to shut down and tweak things or something's a problem. They have time to fix it. But you know, in the very near future, once they're cool with that, I think you'll get like a 3 to 6 month trial period. They'll go 24.5. So, and then you'll have tokenized stocks, and then at that point, like I said, it's an atomic swap. This really almost, over the long term, it removes the need for the DTCC. The DTCC is already a public good. They don't really make money. They make enough to keep the lights on and provide their service. And they're clipping some fees on every trade, but at the end of the day, like they're really kind of a public infrastructure, which is exactly what this will be. This will be a main mainnet, a protocol that will allow for atomic settlement and swap on the back end of the stock market between counterparties that's riskless and real time. So that may have been more complex than what you wanted, but hopefully that gives you a better detail on what that actually means when you settle the back end of the stock market. The man, the myth, the legend. Thank you, Nick. He says, scale of 1 to 10, how bullish are you still for this year? 1,000? I am ever more bullish every single day on the appreciation of XRP in 2025. We have everything. Like earlier in the year, like as we come down to the end of it, it's just getting like, I can't say I know it's going to happen without saying I know it's going to happen, but we're on the precipice here. There's 3 things that need to happen. I've told y'all exactly what they are. When those things happen, have fun. It will be a good time. We've got Rose. Oh, I'm going to butcher it. Beautiful name. It sounds beautiful. Mr. Master Claver. Let's say your 99.99999% prediction does not come to fruition by the end of this year. What percentage of certainty do you have if it happening in 2026? 100%. Absolutely 100. We will see a 4-digit XRP next year, if not a 5-digit XRP by the end of the year. Ellis says, Jake, brother man, does Crypto Sensei annoy you with his twisted version of your theory? I haven't watched it. I'll just be honest with you guys. I try to just stay in my lane. Blockchain Backer does this really well. It's one of the things I respect about him. He didn't even know who I was. Like, I know who the other people are because I've been on their show and I have conversations and we're cordial. I got nothing bad to say about any other influencer. I don't really consider myself an influencer. Like, I get on here because this is fun for me. And you guys seem to like it. So I get on here and answer questions. But yeah, I got nothing bad to say about them. I haven't watched his stuff to know what he's saying. I see a lot of chatter on Twitter about people putting me in their videos. That's cool. Thank you. More visibility, I guess. I'm just focused on what we're doing. I don't have time to sit around and play piddly games. Like we run at this point, we manage over $1 billion. I've got fires burning all the time for real problems that I'm helping fix and manage people and grow people and create partnerships and solutions. I wish I had time like I used to be able to sit down and, consume content. I at this point, which is weird to say, but I make more content than I consume. It's weird to be in that position, especially with the social media age that we live in. But it's probably about even, to be honest with you, probably even for the amount that I probably get on Twitter for about 2.5 hours a day, and Discord, and then I come on here or I shoot a podcast or do other stuff. And I'm normally creating content 3-ish hours a day, if not more. So it's pretty even for me. But again, I don't have the time or luxury to just watch everybody else's YouTube channel like I used to. So, but again, I got nothing bad to say about anybody else. If they want to run me down, cool. I don't have beef with anybody. And if they do have beef with me, all they do is just call me. Like, they all have my cell phone. We've met in person on multiple occasions. If they got a question or a problem with what we're doing over here, they have my cell phone. They can call me anytime. I'll give you an example. Me and Versan had some beef. We worked that out. He called me. We had a conversation. We shook hands, and we've been great ever since. Versan and Vendel, awesome. Digital Outlook, awesome. Cashew Nate, awesome. There's a lot of content creators. Molly, awesome. There's a lot of great people out there that if they have an issue for whatever reason, they just call me. And I'm like, okay, if I said something off base or, came at you sideways or whatever, didn't mean it like that, I will come out publicly and say that if I need to, I'm here because I want the community and the family to stay together, and I want good people to help other good people. And I want it to continue to be a force and a tribe on the other side of price appreciation, so that I just don't want people to get left behind or taken advantage of. So that's my 2 cents on that. I'm going to go to the Discord because Big Mike, Living Legacy, is always nice enough to share with me super chats that I haven't gotten to yet or have missed, and he has done so. So I'm going to run these down, and then we'll get to the rest of you guys. And I know, I just leave you guys. Y'all are kind of the, mushroom in the back over here on TikTok. I don't feel like I ever get to answer y'all's questions. When I first started this, I answered everybody's question, but now there's a lot of people on here. And again, I really appreciate everybody's time and taking time out of their schedule to come hang out with me. I am blown away by the amount of cool people that want to, that care about what I have to say. So thank y'all. Christ of 7920 says, Jake, have you paid attention to silver? JP Morgan out there. Oh, they moved their assets to Singapore. Futures contracts are letting them expire to take delay on delivery on asset, and there's not enough supply. This has happened before and almost crushed economics. Yeah. The COMEX 589 rule, like when they have to verify and they can't issue, paper gold and silver and manipulate it like they have been and spoof the market. They make a ton of money every single day spoofing the market. They've been fined for it, but when you find somebody $5 billion and they make that over 2 days when they're spoofing, they don't care. They'll spoof every single day of the week. And then, 360 days, well, however many days are in work week, because they don't trade on the weekend, right? It's a lot. It's 300. We'll call it roughly 300 days a year that they could spoof, and they get charged for 2 of them. Slap on the wrist, they don't care. But once they do have to shore it up and like make sure that the collateral's there and it's audited, they won't be able to do any of that stuff anymore. And I think they know that. And so they're trying to position for that situation. It's not going to be good. I agree with you. Breaking Seals says, Chris from Australia here. Very cool, dude. Appreciate the super chat. He says, aren't institutions actually holding XRP or just testing Ripple's technology without the token? Why would banks use XRP instead of private or permissioned ledgers they already control? Hope you have a Merry Christmas. Great questions. So they will use private permission ledgers that are interoperable with a mainnet. So this is the analogy I give people. Many of us weren't around for the origin of the internet. I was very young when it was going on, but you might remember that. In the beginning of the internet, for email, if I had to have an AOL email and you had to have an AOL email, and we could then send each other stuff. So it was intra. It was the intranet, not the internet. Okay. So intra settlement is banks can send payments between branches, and they can do that with their own stablecoin. And it provides them 24/7, 365 liquidity to be able to make those transfers, satisfy client needs, do all that stuff. Awesome. Private permission stablecoins on Corda or the XRPO on a side chain. Okay. When you want to go from institution to institution between payments, so like you had a Yahoo email and I have an AOL email, we needed the email protocol for interoperability between all of the different email providers. The XRPL is the protocol layer that allows for interoperability between all these siloed ecosystems that all, to your point, want to maintain their own books and records and not have that exposed on a public blockchain, but need interoperability to be able to send payments and transact with a counterparty with no counterparty risk. That's why they're going to adopt it. You need a bridge asset in that capacity. Now, if they're okay with accepting the other bank's stablecoin, sure. Now, so like a business, if it's merchant services or if it's peer-to-peer, they might be okay with holding that counterparties. Like we hold dollars issued by the federal government because we trust it, right? Not really anymore. Most people don't. I think they'll restructure it. I think it'll be fine. But that's why a lot of people move to crypto, because you can look, okay, USDC audits this, Circle audits this, and I feel a warm and fuzzy. I feel like that they're a credible institution. They're not going to go anywhere. Ripple's same way, right? PayPal, same way. There's going to be all of these, merchant service providers and payment processors that issue stablecoins. I think all the social media platforms will issue a stablecoin. People will hold those for incentives for one thing, and then also to be able to transact on that platform easily. And they might also be universally accepted like the dollar. Like you would go to another country and they might take Paxos dollar, or they might take USDC or Tether, right? Like that's a huge example. All over the world, people take Tether, especially third world countries. They want the dollar. Cool. Tether sounds great. So peer-to-peer, I get you. Institutions are going to have a bridge between their siloed institutions or their siloed permissioned ecosystems, like you mentioned. And Corda provides that. And again, they don't have a native settlement token. They adopted XRP in that capacity a long time ago. The other thing that's weird, I don't know if they would prefer me say this, but I'm going to tell y'all, and I've said this in the mastermind. I share a lot of stuff with the mastermind that I don't share here publicly, but I'll give y'all this one. I have asked both Ripple and R3 about the other counterparty. And when I do that, they both say the exact same thing, which is really weird to me. It's almost like it's scripted. They're like, yeah, there's a lawsuit that we had with them a long time ago, but we don't do business with them anymore. And then they change the subject. Both of them. So I don't know. Maybe it is that simple, but it's really interesting to me. Like you would think there'd be some difference in their cadence of speech or like what they would say in that circumstance. But it's multiple people at both of those institutions that have said the exact same thing when presented with that question. So again, they probably don't want me to share that. Or maybe they do. Maybe they do want me to share it because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Primal Waits says, Merry Christmas to you and your family. God bless you for what you're doing. By the way, I'm keeping your arm warmed up for the rematch next time we meet. I was at the gym last night and I was getting my rotations in on the cable pull because I got to build the forearm up a little bit more. I need to get more torque on you next time. You guys, y'all missed the San Francisco event. We do a ton of in real life events for the mastermind, and I did arm wrestle Primal Weight when we were at the San Francisco event. I like to do fun stuff, jazz it up and keep it fun. Oh geez, Jake Toshi, Claver Moto. Y'all are wild with the names. He says, social member here, stay strong, God bless. I hope you're right, praying. Keep praying, brother. Every day is a wonderful day to walk with God. And, I think there's going to be a lot of blessings for people here in the near future. Michael says, legend. You have sat there and thought about how big your name and company is going to get. Have you sat there and thought about how big your name and company is going to get? If your 100% price prediction hits by end of year, your domino theory is happening. God bless. Yeah. Kind of scary sometimes, if I'm going to be real. I have loved this year. This year has been awesome. I've traveled a ton. I've got to meet a lot of cool people. Sometimes I felt like I was traveling too much, spend time away from my family. I love my wife and my son, and I would like to spend more time with them. Again, for me, this is a season. I'm going to try to dial that back in 26. But in the traveling, there have been people that have seen me, and they're like, "You're the guy on the internet." And I'm like, "I'm the guy." Anyway, but not everybody. Like, nobody knows who I am except for people that hold XRP, right? Coolest thing ever. They will walk up to me, we, shake hands, and we chat for a little bit. It's cool to see people that are excited about life and the opportunity that we have here. On the other side of this, when I'm right, my life's going to be very different. My family's life's going to be different. So kind of scary, kind of sad on that. But I can't make the impact that I want to have with my life without doing all this. This is part of the requirement for that. And so it's worth it. It'll be worth it. And obviously there'll be a ton of fruit from it. It'll be fantastic. There'll be champagne problems, right? You need private security. Boo-hoo. Like, I get that, but it is a change versus, and I don't look at myself any different than anybody else. I'm just an average dude. Like, very wild to me that so many cool people want to, take a chance at listening to me and are concerned with what I have to say. Oh, Max is watching. He said, so for y'all that don't know, Max is an agent of chaos. Max Avery. Not malicious. He doesn't want to hurt people or cause collateral damage. He might blow up the moon. or there could be other things on the other side of, our fun that we get to have with this. It'll be a fun ride. Jake Stradamus. Y'all are killing me with the names. Thank you. He says, down the road, if the government tries to take individuals XRP, how would that work with the ETF funds? Thanks for everything. Well, I'm sure that they still had gold ETFs or products on top of gold that were traded even during the period of time when gold was taken from the U.S. public. Again, they took it from individuals. That's how the act was written in 1933. So if you're holding your assets inside of a corporation and they're not publicly disclosed anywhere, you're using the anonymity that you get from Wyoming and the reasons that we structure stuff there. And again, like below $50,000 to $80,000 worth of XRP probably doesn't make sense to even look at it. That's about the time people start looking at it, when their assets continue to appreciate. And again, most people probably wouldn't even look at it until it is a higher price. I just anticipate it moving very quickly. And other people will tell you, well, you can wait till after. You can. There's just a lot of benefit to being proactive versus reactive. I don't want to make emotional decisions or hasty decisions when, I'm excited. And also, like, we're doing the best we can with what we got. We're trying to scale and meet demand, but at that time, like, there's going to be a lot of demand for us. And again, you guys don't have to use us. I've said this lots of times. There's lots of good people out there that can help you with this stuff. I just want people to be thinking about it and be proactive rather than reactive on it. The other thing I want to mention on the LLCs, that code does still work for a little while longer. We are going to raise the price on the LLCs in the very near future. We're adding some additional benefits alongside that. So if you do want to take advantage of it while it is, $2,000 end to end, you can use the code 50OFF, 50OFF DAG. That's 50OFF DAG, and that's at digitalfamilyoffice.io. We are going to raise that to probably 3,000 for people in the mastermind and 4,000 publicly here in the near future, probably like within the next couple weeks is the plan on that. So if you want to take advantage of it, would love to work with you while the price is still there. We also do living trusts for people. Most attorneys are going to charge you somewhere between $1,000 to $3,000 to structure a living trust in your state. We're $500 if you buy the LLC. And, we make it where there's an assignment of ownership of the LLC to the trust, the living trust, that only costs you $500, structured the right way in your state to avoid probate protection. So you get the full kit, bang and caboodle for $2,500. There's not anybody else out there that will charge you less than that for all of that included. And again, because of we don't make a ton of money, I try to do this as cheap as we possibly can to provide people as much value as we can. I know prices haven't run yet and people don't have the excess income to pay for it. We will raise prices post price appreciation and probably minimums. The public minimum at DWP is likely going to be $20 million. Just because I know the amount of demand, and I do anticipate, $100,000, $500,000 XRP price. If if it's $1,000 XRP, that's 10,000. Well, it'd be 20,000 XRP would put you at 20 million, right? Today, our minimum is 50,000 XRP. So it is a reduction in the amount of XRP. It'll just be a raise in the amount of dollars that'll be required in order to work with us. And that's not because we don't want to help the little guy. We want to help everybody and democratize access. I've just got to have bandwidth to scale the team, and then it gives us room to work down, right? If I open it up to everybody all at once, we won't be able to service people to the level that we need to, or we feel obligated to, right? Like, people are paying us the money, like, we want to provide you the level of service that we're supposed to be. So today, the minimum, they're asking over here on TikTok is $50,000 at Digital Wealth, or excuse me, not $50,000, 50,000 XRP, or right around $100,000 in XRP is the minimum at Digital Wealth Partners today. A couple more super chats, and then we'll jump back over here. We got Dentman. Hey, dude, good to see you. He says, hey, brother, thanks so much for yours and your family's endless time and sacrifice for all of us. Imagine how Trump will have to change his tune after low gas prices to tune from low gas prices to it spiked hard at the pump soon. Appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the kind words. And yeah, Trump's definitely going to have to focus on something else. he'll probably point to paying off the debt with XRP when all of it happens, and like, don't look at the stock market or gas real quick until we can fix that. And he'll blame it on, whoever shuts down the Strait of Hormuz or international. Like, there'll be a scapegoat. It'll be everybody's favorite scapegoat for a while. Kevin says, super genius. Thank you guys for the kind words. Like I said, I try to think critically and watch other people that are smarter than me and then put it together in a digestible way for you guys. That's what I try to do. He says, after XRP price appreciation in 2025, that's the type of confidence I'm talking about, Kevin. He says, will Jerry Jones finally retire from a concerned Steeler fan? P.S. If you're in the market for a nice, sketchy suit, check out State and Liberty. Also check out Tailored Athlete for shirts / everyday wear. Very cool, man. I don't know if you're an owner in either one of those, but he says State and Liberty for a suit, and then Tailored Athlete for shirts and everyday wear. So I probably need to check that out. I have to get everything tailored, which sounds, again, champagne problems. Like, I know, but it is, it's almost nothing off the rack will fit or look, it looks like a bag on me if it fits me in the shoulders. Let's see here. And then we've got MCW3SS. They say, if we created a holding LLC through your site, can we start a retirement account associated with it, a solo 401k or a SEP IRA? And 2, how does succession work if you die? Since it's a solo LLC, is it through the associated living trust? You nailed it, my man. So the trust would distribute the equity to the beneficiaries because the trust would be the owner of the LLC. That's how we structure it if you do both. If you don't have both in place, you should have some type of succession plan listed in your operating agreement. It's likely going to be, your spouse that will inherit the LLC and the equity if you're married. If your living will list it to somebody else, and then you don't have a spouse, they would inherit it. They would get the assets and the debt, but they would have to go through probate for it. So the living trust, like, I don't want to say everybody should have a living trust, but almost everybody should have a living trust. If you have any amount of assets that you use on a regular basis that you want to pass to your kiddos or other people, if God forbid something were to happen to you, we do it for $500. You're not going to find it cheaper out there. And then, yeah, you absolutely can set up a retirement account with the LLC that we structure for you. The other thing, and this I was informed of this tonight. So I'm always learning things, and I always say when I'm wrong. Okay, I try to own my mistakes. And this may not be a mistake. It's going to depend on the CPA. You should always talk with the CPA before making any tax decisions. Okay, so don't quote me here. I'm not a tax professional. I know enough to be dangerous, right? So we've talked about foreign qualifications for LLCs. There are absolutely people out there that they're going to tell you absolutely have to do that if you live in another state rather than where the LLC is. I would argue that you're not actually doing business. There's no, like, this is passive income. You're holding an asset or you're investing it. It's not requiring a bunch of your time. You're not buying equipment, hiring employees, and doing stuff in a state in order to have to foreign register with it. And if you do have to foreign qualify or foreign register your LLC with your state, it unwinds a lot of the protections and stuff that you get from having it in Wyoming, right? Now, if money passes to you, you're still going to have to pay state taxes. But the anonymity and the other benefits that you're going to get from it are maintained. So if you're just holding your XRP, my argument would be, and you set it up in Wyoming in that LLC and that holding company that we structure for you, not a trading company like other people are going to set up and do it wrong. I don't think you have to foreign qualify or foreign report or, let your state know that you have that entity, because you're not doing business in your state with that entity, in my opinion. Again, always seek a CPA. We have some CPAs you can talk to if you want to reach out to us at digitalfamilyoffice.io. We'll pass you along to our CPAs, but based on my conversations with our CPAs and others, that should be how that works out. Kevin, golly, dude, $500. Thank you so much. Hey, he's got the Grateful Dead as his moniker. Pretty good. He says, can you set up an LLC for a Canadian resident? That is a lot of money. I feel bad because I don't feel like I'm going to be able to give you $500 worth of value on that question, Kevin. Thank you. That's very kind of you. He said, I'm assuming CA means Canadian. It could be California, but I'm going to assume Canadian. We can. So I have multiple podcasts with Aaron Grinhoss that I would encourage you to go watch. I would also encourage you to reach out to Aaron at Aaron, AARON, at Grinhoss, just like it sounds, grinhosslaw.ca. And in those videos that I shot with him, you can find his newsletter. You can reach out to him, schedule an appointment. He's going to be able to help you there in Canada. He's the most leading edge attorney, estate planner for crypto in Canada, period. Like, he sits on the boards. He consults with all the other people there in Canada to deal with crypto. This is all he does, is structure estate planning for people that are holding crypto. He's in Toronto, so I don't know what province. Province was the word I was looking for on Monday night that I couldn't figure out about Canada. I don't know which province you're in, but he can help you irrespective. And he has deep understanding of U.S. tax law and Canadian tax law and how that works with digital assets. Setting up an LLC here, Canadian tax law, one is resident tax. So if you live in Canada, you get taxed there. If you move out of Canada, you don't get taxed there. So might want to move. And a lot of people have family and they're not going to. But if you set up an LLC here, Canada doesn't recognize an LLC as a pass-through entity. So they're going to tax you at the corporate level for US, and then you're going to get taxed again at the personal level. You don't get that flow through, like that benefit that people here domestic in the US would get. So we do see, if it is larger amounts and you do want to structure it here and you are going to spend time in the US, because it creates a nexus to the US also. We see people set up C Corps if they're Canadians, but we do see a lot of people structure things offshore in BVI or Bermuda or Cayman or other areas. We've had a couple clients move from Canada to Dubai, and we've helped them structure stuff there. So I don't know what your intent over the long term is. I would hesitate to say that it would be a good idea for us to set up an LLC for you. I would consult with Aaron first and make sure you're making the best decision for you and your family before you move forward with that. This person says, legend, my family is active duty service members stationed in Okinawa. Home of record where I joined is California, but I claim Washington, previously stationed there. I don't really have a permanent state yet. How does this affect my LLC and trust? It's a good question. So for active duty, that's in California, but you're stationed in Okinawa, Japan. We have another client that has U.S. citizenship that is in Japan. He's in the mastermind. His name is Phil. He reports on the ground there in Japan for us a lot of the time. And I believe he has a Wyoming LLC also. So anybody that has a social security number can set up a corporation here. You're going to be the, owner and beneficiary owner. Beneficial owner of the LLC. Single member is going to allow it to be disregarded and move the assets in their tax with no tax implications. If you set up a partnership and you're not in a qualified joint venture state, you are going to have tax implications if you put your spouse 50-50 on there with you. So just be aware of that. If you're doing it independent of us, we will consult with people and make sure they do it the right way if they work with Digital Ascension Group. But like I said, I want you guys just to be educated and have a conversation with whoever you're going to work with. So yeah, we could absolutely set it up for you. no issues. And you're not, so as long as you're not spending more than half the year, I don't remember how many days it was, but like if you're not domiciled in that state, you're not going to be subject to the state taxes, even though you have a residence there. If you don't actually physically there, you're not going to have to pay state taxes in that state, and you'd be able to get benefits of Wyoming LLC with no state tax. So would love to work with you on that if it's something that you're interested in. And again, for anybody else that's interested in the LLC, you just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF. Well, actually, there's another code. There's two codes. The other code is half off DAG LLC. So 50 off or half off. 50 is numbers, half is words, all capitalized. I'm gonna go. I am not gonna get to all the super chats tonight. I've been running my mouth for too long, and I'm gonna scroll back up from the bottom here. So we've got 20 minutes left, and I'm gonna try to get to as many as I can. My wife does a good job of receiving these. If you do DM us on other social media platforms, and she will get them to me, and I will answer them on live. I have 3 tonight. I've had up to 5 before that I had to get through when we answered. So. Or when I get on here. And I do want to make sure we get to people's super chats. So if I miss it for whatever reason, please send this to us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Discord. There's a bunch of forums where you can pass us the super chat, and we will get to it. Either answer it there or I'll answer it here on the live. This person says, if I buy an LLC today, can I start January so I don't pay the $800 now until next year? Want to get the $2,500 while it lasts. So the $800 is if you foreign register. So again, like I talked about earlier, you want to talk with your CPA, but I don't think you're going to have to do that because you're not running an active business in California. And you could even argue that you're running the business in Wyoming because that's where the assets are if you're working with Digital Wealth Partners at Anchorage, and they're being traded there, and you don't, you manage it, but you'd like, we're an advisor, like it's kind of quasi, and it's pretty passive. So I think you're okay to not do the foreign qualification on the LLCs. And then not have to pay, $800 to California, because you're effectively going to have to set up another corporation, and it unwinds all of the anonymity and all the benefits that you get from there in Wyoming. So again, this is my tax attorneys telling me this. I would consult with your CPA or your tax attorney to verify that. They could tell you different. And if they do, then listen to them. Again, I'm not a CPA. Omar says, hey, stud, ChatGPT says that global GDP makes XRP $10,000 impossible. Can you explain it to me like I'm a dummy? Sure. I'll take it back to the email protocol. Imagine you send $1 with every email. How many emails you get a day? A lot of emails. So right now, the global GDP and production of countries, that's just some value. It's not all the value of real estate. It's not all the value of the stock market. It's not all the value of FX. It's not all the value of commodities or elements in the ground or all the watches that are out there or the other products and things that exist. And then there's derivatives. There's a ton of value and data. Like we don't have a way to value and grade data yet. I think that's coming. There's energy. Like, what's the value of energy? People could say that that's Bitcoin, right? There's so many things that have value that you could ascribe value to or calculate the value of that aren't involved in global GDP that would be involved in the support or price appreciation of an asset settling that value, and all of that will move on chain over the next decade. I think we'll be 80% of the way there by 2030, and I think it'll take another 5 years to get the last 20%. And I don't know that we'll get everything on chain, but I think it'll be almost everything. So at that point, you'd have a much clearer picture of what global value was. But GDP alone, is just one piece of all of that value. It's a big piece, not, but it is just one piece. Sorry G says, Jake, if you have already created a Montana LLC with a cold wallet for your LLC, what should be your next steps? Well, I don't know how much you have. I don't know what your long-term goals are. I don't know. There's a lot of questions. So to that effect, I would probably set up a time with a financial advisor at Digital Wealth Partners. If you already have an LLC in place and you're happy with that, nothing wrong. You know, I like Wyoming better than Montana. There's, 5 other states that give you anonymity with the way that it's filed with your attorney. But if you're good with Wyoming or with Montana, then we're good with Montana. So I would reach out to a financial advisor at digitalwealthpartners.net, book a time or a consult with one of them, and then they could walk you through what's going to be the best for you and your family, for your goals, how much you have, what you want to do with it. And then if you want to work with us, awesome. If you want to keep holding it on your cold wallet and wait till it appreciates, awesome. We're not going anywhere, and we're going to continue to bring out cool products that you're going to be able to leverage post price appreciation. So I look forward to working with you. Let's see here. We've got Solomon Burner. He says, Jake, I know you probably said it before, but how much XRP would someone need to set up an LLC? We see people start to look at it somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 worth of XRP. So at today's price, you're looking at probably 25,000, 30,000 XRP is kind of the area where I think that starts to make sense. Some people wait till later. Some people do it sooner. We'll set it up for anybody. If you have less than that, I don't think it makes sense. I think you would be better off buying more XRP with $2,000 rather than paying us. That would be my 2 cents on that. And if you can get it done cheaper, cool. I just don't know that it's going to be the same quality. It's going to be difficult for you to make sure that the operating agreement is structured the right way and has the right provisions in it. To get an attorney to draft that, it's going to be $1,800 to $2,500. It's not going to matter what attorney you go to in Wyoming. There's cost associated with that. We have a template that we provide you that's drafted by our attorneys. We don't provide legal advice, but then our paralegals will help work through that with you. We partner with Laughlin to do all that, and they also have attorneys on staff as well. So, Centron says, thanks for the knowledge you share. It's invaluable. Thank you for being here, man. Or lady. Thank you for your time this evening. I don't want to be sexist. They say, want to buy XRP for my 3 kids. Is there a limit to number of wallets in LLC, or do I add it to my wallet? You can list as many wallets as you want in the LLC for the same asset even. As long as you're using it for the initial capital contribution, you're fine. If you're doing it for your 3 kids, I don't know that you want to keep it in your LLC. I would put yours in the LLC, but we're coming down to the end of the year here, and you get $19,000 a year that you can gift to your children or whoever you want to per person. Per spouse also. So, if you did want to gift them XRP for less than that amount, you just move it from your wallet to theirs, and that would serve as proof of the gift. There'd be a transfer transaction you could relate that to. You'd want to document it somehow. Just have an attestation that you're gifting on this date to your child's name in this wallet address, blah, blah, blah. Keep that with your will and whatever else you have. Or your trust. We are running up on time here. Trying to think if there's anything else off the top of my head that I wanted to get to and talk to you guys about tonight. I'm gonna grab a couple more super chats and then we'll wrap it here. This person says, if you already have crypto in a private express trust web, can you Can I utilize yours? I'll tell you guys when I'm ignorant on something, I don't know what a private express trust web is. Visceral response is it sounds like a scam. I could be way off base. I don't know everything. But it sounds like you know way more about it than I do. And I don't know if what we have is able to work with that. So I apologize for my ignorance. This person says, is Uphold Vault any good? Yeah, I think it's a good product. I actually talked to Simon in Austin in 2023 when they were going to roll that out. And that actually worked out really well for us over the long term. But yeah, Vault's good. Maybe there's been some things in my life that have happened that have given me pause. A lot of people want an immediate return on investments on stuff. Like if you, let's say you ran marketing for a company, you put dollars into the marketing spend, you get dollars back. You can look at your CAC and your LTV and it's all real clean and you know how that works. Lifetime value of client, not loan to value ratio. And CAC is cost of customer acquisition cost. There's other transactions and things that you spend money on in life that have an intangible value until you use them later on. So like we sponsored that event in Austin. I got to meet, Simon from Uphold and sit down and drink whiskey from, at the after party for that event, 15 grand. It was the most expensive event that we had sponsored at the time. I really didn't have the money to do it, but I committed to it. And the person putting it on is a good friend. And so we, figured it out and invested and did it, which was fine. It wasn't that big a deal. Sometimes I have sold XRP over the years. I broke the number one rule, but I've had to fund the business and do things. So anyway, we got to sit down and drink some whiskey with him. Never really amounted to anything until here recently. And some of the conversations that I had with him, I was able to use in my business and have big benefit. So, I see a lot of people that are out there that want an immediate return when they put money into something. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, 5, 10 years after you spend money on something for you to really get the real return from it. And I've had that happen to me over and over and over again. And so I always have some budget just to go places and talk to cool people and learn new things. And sometimes I get nothing out of it, or it doesn't seem like I got anything out of it until years later, when I'm like, oh, that conversation this person said, or I'll meet somebody and it generates interest and curiosity and I'm able to relate to them. There's a bunch of different ways that it plays out, but it inevitably comes back around. The universe is a wonderful thing. And if you invest value and circulate that money, it will come back to you in much greater amounts. All right, we're going to grab 2 more super chats and then we're going to wrap it up tonight. We did that one. We did that one. We did that one. Sorry, scrolling back up through the chat here, and I want to make sure that if I already answered it, I don't want to do it again. This person says, why are you so sure that the catalyst will play out? Are you saying the government is purposely orchestrating oil, and why would they? Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, I'll say that. You need that for the rest of, one, a scapegoat for the Bank of Japan, and then it's not their fault. It's not the Fed's fault. They have somebody to point to. And then 2, if they do it that way, it also sets off other cascading events that are beneficial for an economic crisis. So if people kick back oil production online, obviously there's additional cost in energy, but it actually brings back jobs. Jobs have started to rise here in the US. Job losses were at 4.6%, which is above the Fed's mandate of 2% unemployment and 2% inflation. So they're going to have to do something to stimulate the economy. Oil rising, whether you like it or not, does stimulate the economy. There's a lot of things that are made from oil, petroleum products, pharmaceuticals. Almost every lotion or thing you put in your car or anything else has oil in it. And all those people are able to mark those things up, and they make more money, and then they spend more money, and the economy moves if oil is going up. If it's going down, people are hoarding cash, people aren't spending as much. They start capping pumps and wells, and they start laying people off below, $65, $70 a barrel. They just start capping stuff, and they're like, well, I'll just wait till it goes back up and it's above that, and then we'll start pumping it again. So they do want oil to rise. For there to be a healthy economy in the US, we really need gas to be around like 250, 260, at least here in Texas. Other states are obviously going to be higher than that. We're around $2 right now, a little over $2 here in Texas for oil, which is a little low for economic growth, especially here in our state, right? Like we're real estate and oil dependent for a lot of what we do. And there's other states that are that way as well. So that's one thing. And then there's downstream effects of the oil rising that will also cause economic benefit, like XRP, implementation of this technology. You're creating a bunch of efficiencies. And they've planned all this out, in my personal opinion, for a long time, and thought through all of the, cascading events or ripple effects, if you will, of everything playing out. And they've got backstops and things in place to make sure that they benefit from all those. We've got Manglebee777. They say, Mastermind and DWP client, awesome. Glad to be working with you. Thank you for the kind words and the support. They say, tried and failed to teach my wife about layer 1, layer 2, M2 money supply, DAP, DApps, public and private ledgers, derivatives market, and tier 1. Please help. She don't need to know all that. Why would she care? And most people aren't going to care. And I'm sorry to be abrupt about it, but if you're, I'm just going to say, I'm a geek. I think all that stuff's cool. I like to nerd out about it. Most people couldn't care less. I don't know how the email protocol works. I don't need to. I send an email, you get an email. That's all people care about. They don't care about all the fancy back-end stuff that actually allows this stuff to happen. The way that I have had the most success teaching people or relating to people and explaining this stuff is using an analogy for something that benefits them and a problem that they have in their life that this solves. So if you looked at, you laid out a bunch of things here, but really it's blockchain at scale and M2 money supply. Cool. They print more money, things cost more because there's same amount of demand and more money, right? And then vice versa. So basic economics, you could just show her some basic economics and I'm sure she could figure that stuff out. But as far as all the top, stuff you rattled off there, most people aren't going to give, they're not going to care at all. And I don't blame them. It's just, how does this affect my life and benefit me? Or make it worse, right? If it's going to cause more problems, I don't want that. So that's the way I would relate it to people. And I tend to have much more success in those conversations when I relate it in that way, rather than running through all the technical jargon that is over people's heads. Because nobody likes that, right? You want to be relatable and you want to make it simple. And if you can't explain it to a third grader, you probably can't really explain it. My son's in that age bracket. And so that's my testing ground for a lot of this stuff. I'm like, does that make sense? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. Then other people are going to get it too. Pyro 1020, they say, thanks for all that you do. I love your live chats. Keeps me grounded and focused. Really appreciate. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Merry Christmas to you guys. I've got my wonderful wife put up the holiday banner for you guys here in the back. It'll be around all next week for the Monday and Wednesday live that we do next week. We did stop the code, so it's no longer $2 entry into the mastermind. If you do want to join the mastermind, I think there is a small discount code, or a small discount if you use the code BeyondBroke1MO. I don't know what it is. I think it might be like $5 off or something for the first month. So there still is some benefit there if you want to use it and try it out. But we are, it's a lot of people in there, and we want to make sure that they're taken care of. And we will be locking it down on the other side of a $10 XRP in the very, very near future. Like, again, I think 13 days is a high probability. So if you want to participate, I would encourage you to get it in there. Okay, just in, it is $5 off the 25 if you want to use it for social, and it's $10 off for Carbon One. So instead of $100, it's 90, and instead of $25, it's 20. If you do want to try it out. So again, that's Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar or month. Again, if you want to work with us on the estate planning side, we would love to work with you. And again, you don't have to work with us. There's a lot of good people out there. But if you do want to use our services, it's $2,500 for the LLC and the living trust. And it's done the right way, structured the right way, working with, we've done 7,000 of these. Like, there's not anybody else that's going to have anywhere close to the same volume or idea or track record that we have with it. But again, if you want to chat with an attorney and sit down and like structure it and go and know every little nuance, we're not going to do that for you. We just kind of do everything. Now you will have to do a little bit on the corporate veil and maintenance on that for the meeting minutes and stuff, but it's pretty simple, like 10 minutes, 3-4 times a year, not a big deal. But it is $2,000 if you want to use the code. 50 off 50 OFF DAG LLC. That's 50 OFF DAG LLC. And again, you can use that same code for the $2,500 and get the living trust alongside it. And then last but not least, if you do have at least 50,000 XRP and you want access to all the cool stuff that we are bringing to market and already have over there at Digital Wealth Partners. Again, we just launched that algorithmic trading strategy on IRAs today. CoinDesk out with the article, which was really cool to see. They picked that up. I don't think that we paid for that. Maybe we did. But either way, very cool to see that that is finalized and out there, and excited to bring that to our clients. And yeah, you just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and go to the contact us form if you want to go check it out. So with that, I'm going to wrap it. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, a wonderful night. If I don't see you, which I will, I wish you a Merry Christmas with you and your family. Hope that you have wonderful holidays, get to slow down and enjoy time with everybody here at the end of the year and make wonderful memories. And I'm going to be doing the same. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the next one.